Hello, hope everyone's well. Not done a video for a few days because I've had a very croaky voice. I was at the Everton game on Monday night against Spurs and we scored a last minute goal for a very, very important result. And it went off, I can tell you, it went off. So yeah, some wild celebrations there. So yeah, still not got my voice back properly. Hope everyone's well. On this beautiful Good Friday evening, just out for my second walk of the day. So as I say, probably won't be a long video this, just a quick hello, but something that I just wanted to say really, to do with anger. And anger's a common theme in my the content that I put out there. You know, I firmly believe that there's something seriously wrong with people who aren't angry at what's being done to them and to their families and to their societies, to their countries, to their way of life in the last few years. And anger's an interesting one because anger usually is a destructive emotion, especially if it's not understood. But it's not always a destructive emotion. Sometimes it's a natural response and a justified response and a righteous response, or probably not even response, but an emotion that's always there, you know, when you consider the scale of the evil that we've all been subjected to. But with anger, I've really had a bit of a psychic shift. I don't think you can have a bit of a psychic shift. I've managed to kind of reorientate myself around the anger that I continue to feel, to not view the anger differently, not to try to understand it differently, because I understand it with great clarity, and for those of you that follow me, you'll know why that is. And for those of you, which will be most if not all of you, who understand the level and scale of suffering that's taking place in society right now, you will also understand. And I've arrived at a point where I feel I'm finally giving myself permission to try to find some calm and some peace. Now, I'll never be at peace until justice is served, you know, until there's been a proper reckoning with what's happened, until justice has been served and accountability served and things put right. I'll never properly be at peace. And I feel that that's right. You know, I feel that that's right. But that doesn't mean that you, that all of us aren't entitled, and yes, I do mean entitled, to enjoy, to tap into other emotions, to be inspired like I am right now. My second walk today on this very same walk. I did this afternoon with this morning with Sarah and Diamond, the dog. And you just need to look around at how beautiful and inspiring and captivating this is as spring springs to life. Obviously this is Easter weekend, a time of rebirth and renaissance and light overcoming dark. You know, obviously if you're a Christian, you'll know what I'm talking about here. I'm not a really religious person myself, but I'm very interested in the biblical teachings, and the story of Easter is one of, you know, there's betrayal, isn't there, and sacrifice and darkness, and then there is overcoming, and there is truth, and there is light, and there is new life and renaissance and rebirth. And that's what spring is, rebirth. And nature always instructs, nature always inspires, nature always grounds us. I think that's why you know, in the last few months, best part of 6 months, where I wasn't really able to get out and do what I love doing, which is walking in nature, doing these amazing country walks, getting out in the garden. And that kind of sense of anger is more difficult to manage. So I think a lot of you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't even need to state the obvious things, really. You know, my channel's hanging by a thread as it is. So with all that being said and done, it's amazing how, you know, when you can, if and when you can get to a place where you're kind of observing yourself, almost as a third person, and not reacting, trying to be as non-judgmental about yourself and others as you can, the clarity that starts to present itself, the razor sharp clarity, you know, and that's because, you know, you're getting out of here and more into here, you know, where true intelligence really does lie, in the heart, and which makes it all the more interesting. And I'll tell you why, how quick to that righteous and almost, what word would I use to describe it, rageful anger, that, as I say, is still in me and in a lot of us, how quickly that can come to the surface, and how we need to, certainly me, to understand when that's happening and not allow it to consume us. So for me, yesterday I woke up and phone out, and I had a look on the BBC website. I mean, isn't that pure insanity anyway, to see a story about this junior doctor's strike next week. Whether it's still going ahead, I've not looked today. I think it is. The ludicrous demands that they are, well, demanding in terms of their pay, when you consider the heinous crimes that a lot of these doctors are responsible for, when you consider how they've let down their profession, how they've sold themselves out, how they've taken their 30 pieces of silver, how they've abdicated themselves of responsibility for their patients, many of whom were children, many of whom were defenceless children and defenceless old people. And when you read how the scale of this strike could potentially kill yet more people next week, kill or harm, because they're not there doing the jobs that they're supposed to do, healing sick people. And I felt the anger instantly rise from deep within and came bubbling to the surface right at the start of the day. I was also made aware before another story regarding a much talked about medical procedure that's been given the go ahead for very, very young, allegedly vulnerable babies and children. Now, to not feel angry when you read about these despicable things that are taking place, I would argue makes you really not human. I really do believe that. Lacking in empathy, lacking in understanding, lacking in good values. And I think that's the thing that I've been most angry about. It's not about what's been done by the psychopathic overlords so much. Of course it is that. Of course it is that. But it's more, as I talk so much on my channel, about the pathetic acquiescence and obedience and unquestioning immoral practices of many of those amongst us who have implemented the orders of these psychopathic, egotistical, power-hungry, psychopathic entities. It's always been that, since all this started, that's really angered me. And the unbelievably pitiful excuses that many have had, followed by the ridicule, followed by the what I call haunting silence now, as people finally realise the scale of where their pathetic acquiescence and following orders has led us all to. But we've got to watch those of us, I don't want to say those of us in the know, those of us who try and pay some attention, you know, those of us who believe in being stakeholders in our communities, in our societies, those of us who've developed a personal value system, however imperfect that may be, those of us who care, those of us who didn't lose their compassion, those of us who didn't lose their empathy, those of us who didn't lose their capacity to question and their intellectual ability. It's important for us that despite our righteous anger, despite these terrible things that have happened to us and to our families, and the lack of support from many close to us, it's important that it's crucial, give ourselves some space, yeah, some time, some permission to do what I'm doing now, to feel that we are still part of something, that we do belong to something, to realise that we have achieved something historically magnificent, and that we continue to do so, that we do make a difference. One sec. And that's in the midst of being surrounded by the majority for whom still money, conformity and this vague sense of insular security is all that matters. Because this is our life, this is our existence at the moment. This is the period of time that we're living in. These are the people that we're living with. This is the society that we have. But there's some amazing things going on as well. And not only this, not only do I have this, not only do I now have the ability again to go walking miles in the countryside to enjoy the wild daffodils over there, there's some wild primroses here, the cherry blossom, the apple blossom, all of the trees are coming to life, the bird song, the canal which is just coming up ahead now. But there's also a lot of good people out there as well, you know. They're in a massive minority, but that minority has swelled enough over the last couple of years to ensure that whilst our institutions and our many aspects of our public life have been poisoned in a way that none of us could ever have imagined, that process isn't complete. It's not far from complete. And on a local level, particularly the further away you get from cities, the more into nature you can get, the more you can get out into. There's a reason why, again, those who are paying the vaguest bit of attention can see this. There's a reason why the powers that be, the smart cities and the 15-minute cities and the digital ID and the biosurveillance and the health passports and all the rest of it, there's a reason for that. And that reason is clear to see. And the further you can get away from that, I truly believe you'll find more those small communities are there. The churches, the century-old churches and taverns and inns and pubs with the thatch roofs, and the hedgerows that have been there for hundreds of years, the wild meadows and the nature, the garden centres, the beautiful gardens, the winding country roads, the farms. There's one there. Much of that way of life that a lot of us have nostalgia for and a longing for, some of it's still here. It's not gone away, and that's what we need to remember, and that's because of us. I believe that other countries have been polluted, their societies have been polluted more than England's has, even though probably our media is the most treacherous, the most sabotaging, the most despicably horrific in how it tries to demoralise. And even though pretty much all of the institutions that many of us once believed were there to serve us have been completely taken over, not all of public life has been, and those small businesses and those people who've refused to yield. And as I say, the things that have always been done, sowing the crops at this time of year and the harvest in the autumn, the pub going, the church going, the local groups litter picking, the planting flowers in the small towns and villages. I think the further you can get away from the city with all of its surveillance and all of its pressures and all of its craziness, and I think as well, maybe the further away from what I'd term maybe suburbia as well, with all of the neurotic middle class concerns that are the concerns that are based primarily really on instilled and manufactured and engineered and provided for fears around things that aren't even real. Get away from all that. Get out here and immerse ourselves in the customs and traditions of our country and our society, the customs and traditions that, as I say, many of us admire, long for. Many of them are still present. So that's my kind of thoughts for this evening as I continue my walk, on my circular walk back home down the canal. As dusk falls, the night is perfectly still and cool, the skies are clear, and we'll wake up tomorrow again with the dew on the grass and with a fresh feel to the day again in the cool April morning, with the sun getting higher in the sky, providing more warmth each day as we move through the Easter weekend. So, hope you're all well. I hope that you have a lovely weekend with your families, friends, whatever you're doing, and that you are still able to involve yourselves in these lovely traditions that we have and that we fought to protect. The tiny minority, not just in this country, but around the world. Enjoy it. And if you want to leave a comment to let me know what you think about what I've said in this video, please feel free. Thanks as ever for all of your support, and I will speak to you all soon. Okay, bye bye.